Good morning, everybody. My name is John Stefanko. I'm the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection's Deputy Secretary for the Office of Active and Abandoned Mine Operations. I appreciate the opportunity to MC this event arranged by Senator Casey. Appreciate Congressman Cartwright being here as well to move forward with something that's very important to DEP, which is the treatment of acid mine drainage. We have over 7,000 miles that have been impacted, and once a system is put in to treat it, we want it to continue to be treated well into the future. So with that being said, I'll keep my remarks short and I will turn it over to Senator Casey.
John, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Well, thanks everyone for being here this morning. I'm sorry we're running a little late, especially when it's an event that I called and organized, but I'm grateful you're here with us. I want to thank Congressman Cartwright for his presence here today, but in a larger sense, I want to thank him for his commitment to making sure that every community, not only within his congressional district, but even beyond the borders of that district throughout the state and really throughout the country, that has an acid mine drainage problem, as so many of our communities do. 43 out of 67 counties have been impacted by coal mining and the abandoned mine lands challenges that so many communities face. So when he has been an advocate for the abandoned mine land program and efforts to combat acid mine drainage, Matt Cartwright has been helping the people of his district first and foremost. I'm a constituent of his, so I know it pretty well, but he's also been someone who's been an advocate for these programs that help our Commonwealth and our country recover from the challenges posed by acid mine drainage. Just a little bit of history here because it's personal to me. I grew up in Greenridge, right not far from here, as you know, and I live in the hill section. So I lived almost every year of my life, except for a few when I was much younger, in the city of Scranton. And so did my parents and grandparents and so many other relatives. When I was growing up, the Lackawanna River was a place that you avoided. It was a place that no parent wanted their children to be near because of the pollution from acid mine drainage. Now, because of the work of the state and federal government, and because of the leadership of people like McGurl, at a point where we can enjoy and really embrace the Lackawanna River. But we still have work to do throughout this region and throughout the state to push back against the ravages of acid mine drainage. It isn't simply about clean water, but that's obviously important. And that's, by the way, guaranteed by our state's Constitution. Article 1, Section 27 of the state Constitution, the Conservation Amendment, 51 years old now, passed in 1971, makes it very clear what the obligation is that we have as citizens. Article 1, Section 27 says, the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. That is a directive on all of us as citizens, a command. But it's also important in a much more substantial sense if you're a public official. So if you're a public official, that constitutional provision has heightened importance. And you've got to do everything you can as a public official to ensure that we have clean air, pure water, and so much else that our citizens have a right to expect. So when we clean up abandoned mine lands and rebuild a community and push back against all of the ravages of acid mine drainage, it's obviously in compliance with that constitutional amendment. But it's also, I think, meets a higher obligation to give communities the chance to grow and to thrive and to create jobs and a bright future for the people within those communities. As I said, 43 out of 67 Pennsylvania counties are implicated here when it comes to the challenges of acid mine drainage. So where does that put us today? Well, good news is we have an infrastructure bill that will bring to Pennsylvania, just for 1 year and just for abandoned mine land investment, $244 million. In addition to that 244 this year, we're going to get another 26 million for Pennsylvania from the existing program. So you have an abandoned mine land program where the funding is generated by fees, right? That's been reauthorized for 13 years. But you also have now additional dollars from the United States Treasury. That's the 244 million. So if you look at all the money that the infrastructure bill will spend on abandoned mine lands, a little more than $11 billion, Pennsylvania is going to get 32% of that, about $11.3 billion. So it's a great investment, additional investment we've never had before. We've never had these kinds of dollars from the United States Treasury for this program. It's just been a fee-based program, which will continue, of course. But there's one problem with the legislation. Just like every legislation has some defects. This has a defect that we're trying to fix. And Matt Cartwright's been leading this, and I've been leading it in the Senate. We want to make sure that states across the country that want to dedicate some of those abandoned mine land dollars to acid mine drainage, that they can set aside some of their so-called AML money for acid mine drainage. Can't do that under the infrastructure bill because it doesn't have that set-aside provision. Our bill in the Senate and the House will allow that set-aside. So that's what we're trying to do with the legislation, and I think there's no better place to lift up this legislation, but also to celebrate the investment we're going to make in this community and in so many communities throughout our country, and especially here in our Commonwealth, to make sure that we're not only fulfilling our obligations as citizens, and in my case a public official, under the state constitution, but we're also creating a better future for the people that live in these communities. And so we're grateful to have this opportunity today to talk about it. And I think that Congressman Cartwright is next. Is that right?
That is correct.
So I introduce to you my congressman and our congressman, Matt Cartwright. Matty, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
No, well said, well spoken. Well, the senator is my constituent and I'm his constituent, so we're here keeping an eye on each other. You know, I don't think you could find two public servants more dedicated to the purpose of cleaning up abandoned mine lands, not only in Pennsylvania, but abandoned coal mine lands all over the place. Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky. It's not really a partisan issue at all. And what we're here today to talk about is, as the senator mentioned, is a common sense amendment to the infrastructure bill. You know, it was a chilly day when the president signed the IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, on the south lawn of the Capitol. It was about 50 degrees and blowing. I remember Governor Wolf was there, and he was in a thin shirt and a light jacket, and he was shivering very violently. But we were all happy because it had been before I was born the last time this nation invested that kind of investment in infrastructure, something that has been dogging our country for my entire life. Roads, bridges, all sorts of infrastructure falling into disrepair and not having sufficient funds to restore, replenish, maintain, and expand our infrastructure. And it was with great joy that Senator Casey and I saw that so much of that, $11.3 billion, was going to go into abandoned mine land cleanup. We had a press event on the banks of the Lackawanna in Old Forge for that. It was the deep of winter when Interior Secretary Deb Haaland joined Senator Casey and me and visited places where we could see the acid mine drainage being remediated. there's no substitute for actually seeing the rusty water coming into the brooks and the streams and the river, and it makes you want to do something about it. What we're here today to talk about is an important amendment, and Senator Casey gave you all the numbers, and what this amendment does is it requires 30% of grant money to be held back for future use. So the idea is you don't go in and do a remediation project and then leave, and then let it fall victim to the ravages of time and weather. That you hold back 30% of it for maintenance and repair for that rehabilitation site. So it's just something that makes common, decent sense. It's part of the workaday world that Senator Casey and I are in, trying to make sure government works well and works sensibly and works responsibly. So it's something that I'm very happy to lead in the House. I have no doubt that we'll be able to move this because it's a common sense measure and doesn't make the news very often, but common sense measures do tend to prevail in Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate that. Next on our list of speakers would be Tim Schaefer, who's the Executive Director of the Fish and Boat Commission. We have another speaker following him. It shows the passion of getting the streams cleaned up and the benefits that can be provided by doing that. Currently, we are partnering with Tim and his folks on a project up in Forest City that will be issued for bid that will clean up a refuse pile impacting a stream. But as part of that, we will be able to build a fish and boat launch that can be used by many people in the future. So with that being said, Tim.
And I want to thank the woman who, I don't know if you saw the woman walk out of the stream with her fishing rod right when you were starting to talk. She literally walked up past you with a fishing rod. So whoever that was, thank you. That wasn't a setup. But when Senator Casey was kicking it off, talking about the economic impact of projects like this, it's not just northeastern Pennsylvania, it's all across the Commonwealth. We were really just delighted to have the senator with us on the day before the opening day of trout season, snowing sideways on April 1st in Allegheny County, and John was there as well, and we were, 50 yards downstream of a treatment system of the sort that Congressman Cartwright was talking about that could be funded through the amended for ongoing AMD treatment. That water is now clean enough that we stock trout right there. And we had, I think we had close to probably 50 volunteers. Senator, we took a great photograph of, I got up on the stocking truck with some of our staff, and there's Senator Casey with the local Allison Park Sportsman's Club stocking trout. And actually, we're going to put a copy of that in our magazine. But just a really great photograph. And he was there that day to celebrate, bringing back, in that case, it was Pine Creek, a tributary there in Allegheny County, just a few miles from Pittsburgh. But the river behind you here, I've been spending a lot of time in Lackawanna, Wayne, and Susquehanna counties recently. Bill Gibney, who's one of our local fish and boat commissioner, and another local commissioner, Charlie Charlesworth, who is no stranger to the folks here, they've really been turning the agency on to access opportunities within the Lackawanna watershed. So we've recently issued 2 grants. Owen, I don't see, is here from Lackawanna Heritage Authority. We've now provided 2 grants for new canoe kayak launches on the Lackawanna River. And the vision is to make this an actual water trail so people can kayak from one spot to another and enjoy the waterway all year long when it's boatable. So this momentum behind putting a water trail actually in here could not be stronger. So if you go from April Fool's Day, the day before trout season, to Earth Day on the 22nd, we were there again back here along the Lackawanna River stocking fish upstream from here with folks from the local rail trail group. And there's a wonderful network of trails, as you may know, along the river, and a lot of people are using those trails as a way to hike in and then hike down to the river to fish. And so, again, we stocked on the day before opening day, and then we were stocking literally on Earth Day. Again, the Lackawanna County Conservation District was with us that day. To get a sense of the magnitude of the fishing in this creek, if you're not familiar, there's about 35 miles of wild, naturally reproducing trout in this river. 17 miles of that are Class A, meaning that's the best of the best. And we had our biologist give us some data before this event. There was a recent survey here, found 6 species of resident fish, everything from catchable legal-sized smallmouth bass to wild brown trout over 20 inches long right here. I mean, who would have thought it? I told people I was coming to this event in Scranton, like, you're going where? For what event? And I said, no, it's for real. There was last thing I'll say is there was an article in Trout Unlimited's magazine, Fly Fisherman magazine. I want to make sure I get the name of the article right. Where are my notes here without my reading glasses on? It was Fly Fisherman magazine did an article in 2018 called Pennsylvania's Waking Giant. And it was an article in the foremost fly fishing publication for the country about the Lackawanna River, and it described it as Pennsylvania's waking giant. And there are waking giant streams all across Appalachia. So really, on behalf of our agency, we're responsible for protecting, conserving, and enhancing aquatic resources and providing fishing and boating opportunities. That's what our mission is, and work jointly with John and his partners at DEP. But we have other fish and wildlife agencies across the country who have embraced this. So Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, all the way down to Alabama, Fish and Wildlife Agency directors have gotten engaged in the fight to bring more money for AMD treatment. And just want to, 2 names that weren't mentioned yet today were Joe Pisarcik and John Dawes, who were just indispensable partners of everybody here today. They've really been leading the charge, working with Congressman Cartwright and Senator Casey and their staffs on this language. So yeah, would have been remiss if I didn't mention Joe and John, who are great partners in this. But just thanks to everybody for coming. Thanks for your energy and enthusiasm. And I will end this by saying if there are other spots on the Lackawanna River where people think, man, that would make for a great boat launch, or that would make for great public access, let us know. We'd be happy to come out for a site visit. We've done it with a lot of the partners that are here. We're all in on the Lackawanna River, and just couldn't thank the congressman and the senator for their good work. And again, thanks for coming, and maybe go fishing when you're done. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We couldn't do all of the great work we do under the AML program without good partnerships, and the best people to partner with are our local watershed organizations, non-governmental entities, and with this unprecedented funding, we're going to need them even more than ever. And a great person that can definitely demonstrate the good work that can be done and how it impacts his community. And we've worked with him for many, many years, and I do appreciate all the hard work he's done. I'd like to introduce you to Bernie McGurl.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Congressman, Senator, Tim, Bill. We're really honored to host everyone here today at Sweeney's Beach, which is a river access site. And we didn't use any state or federal money for this. This was all local money, Lackawanna County money, and money that our organization raised with raffles. And we have Riverfest here. And we took this several acre area. It was a knotweed jungle. We pulled about 20 big dumpsters of trash and rubbish and tires and whatnot out of here. And we got some local contractors. We graded it out. We dug out the knotweed 3 feet deep to get that out of the soil and turned it into a lawn. We recycled an old railroad bridge abutment to get these stone boulders along here. And we utilized an old footpath that went right down to the edge of the water. There's a bend in the river here that creates a gravel beach. So we call it Sweeney's Beach, named after a contractor that had a construction office over here 50, 100 years ago. And it's turned out to be a really great investment in restoring this land along our beautiful Lackawanna River. We've been working along this river for 35 years. And we've made tremendous progress from what the senator had mentioned when we were kids growing up here. It was something to run away from. You'd have to get a whole bunch of tetanus shots if you got anywhere near the water. But today, it's a safe and enjoyable location. We've got trails along the river. But the mine reclamation work that we need to do, the infrastructure funds that have been appropriated by Congress and signed into law by the President are critically important for the future of this place, this river, this community, our Commonwealth, and our great nation. We haven't, as the Congressman said, we haven't invested in the United States like this in 70 years. So this is a welcome investment. And the Streams Act, the amendment will take existingly appropriated funds and spend them in a smarter way, conserve them, and make sure that they're here. So the infrastructure that does get built, particularly for mine drainage abatement, will have some funding to make sure that it is maintained. We've been working with the Eastern Pennsylvania Coalition of Abandoned Mine Reclamation. Bob and Mike are over there, and Secretary Stefanko mentioned John Dawes and Joe Pizarczyk. All over Pennsylvania, communities like Scranton are working together, networking, partnering with other communities, other nonprofits to support this work. And we're also importantly working with the private sector. The mine reclamation project that Secretary Stefanko mentioned up in Forest City is on private land owned by Lindy Enterprises, Scott Lindy. And we've been working with him and advancing that project on the so-called Yucca Flat site. We're going to have a boat launch in there, a fishing access area, and then that site will be ready for redevelopment, either as recreation land or I think it's got potential for some senior housing or other kinds of housing or other economic development up there to complement vital Main Street and the trail town with the rail trail running right through it along the river there. So we've got projects like that potentially to go up and down the valley. But we also have the largest, we believe it is the largest, abandoned mine drain point source on the whole continent of North America at Old Forge. And again, we think that the solution to that is a public-private partnership. We're working with several investors on a very exciting scheme that will lead to the production of green energy, green electricity, tied in with solar and wind, and using pump storage hydroelectric. But we need to clean that water. So we're looking at refining the technologies. We still have some outstanding issues together as to the capacity of our technology that's available to treat such a large flow. But we're working on it. We're hoping to see that project come to the point where there'll be a project announcement sometime in the next year. And I'm encouraged by it. So we have a lot more work to be done. I want to thank everybody for your hard work in Washington to make this happen. And I want to, again, thank everybody for joining us at Sweeney's Beach.
Thank you, Bernie. I do want to thank all of our speakers. I do want to definitely appreciate and thank both Senator Casey and Congressman Cartwright. This amendment is vitally important for all of the reasons that have kind of been stated here, that we need to continue to build more treatment systems and continue to operate the ones we have well beyond the 15 years when the infrastructure money is gone. So it's vitally important, and we do appreciate that.